There is a man sitting in a cold, dark cell, waiting for the electric chair. His name is Two-Gun Crowley. He was one of the most dangerous criminals New York had ever seen. He would kill a police officer for simply asking to see his license. He was a menace, a killer, a monster in the eyes of society. But do you know what he wrote in a letter just moments before his capture? While blood was flowing from his wounds, he wrote, "Under my coat is a weary heart, but a kind one that would do nobody any harm." Think about that for a second. A man who murdered without blinking believed in his own heart that he was innocent, that he was misunderstood, that he was actually a good person. Now, pause and ask yourself this. If a hardened criminal like Crowley didn't blame himself for anything, what makes you think the people around you, your spouse, your children, your annoying colleague, will look in the mirror and admit they are wrong just because you shouted at them? We walk through life holding a sharp knife called criticism, thinking we can use it to carve the world into a better shape. We think if we just point out enough mistakes, if we complain loud enough, people will change. But the brutal truth is, criticism is like a homing pigeon. It always flies back home. When you criticize someone, you are not fixing them. You are only wounding their pride, hurting their sense of importance, and forcing them to build a stone wall of defense against you. You are starting a war that you cannot win. Hi, welcome back to Tomorrow Better Version. It is truly a joy to have you here with us again on this journey of self-discovery. If you have ever felt lonely in a crowd, or felt that your words, no matter how logical, just bounce off people, then you are in the right place. Before we dive into the deep ocean of human nature today, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button. It is a small action for you, but it gives us a tremendous amount of motivation to keep creating these videos, to keep digging for these gems of wisdom just for you. Thank you for being part of this community. Now let's go deeper. Let's strip away the surface and look at the foundation of how we treat each other. To understand the first and most vital pillar of human relations, I want to take you high up into the sky. Imagine the famous test pilot Bob Hoover. He was flying back from an air show in San Diego. The sky was clear, everything was perfect, until suddenly at 300 feet in the air, both engines stopped. Just like that. Silence. In that terrifying moment, Hoover's instincts took over. He maneuvered the plane, gliding it down, and managed to land. The impact was rough. The expensive aircraft was destroyed, but miraculously, no one was killed. When Hoover inspected the wreckage, he immediately saw the cause. The World War II propeller plane had been filled with jet fuel instead of gasoline. It was a fatal mistake. Hoover walked back to the airport. He saw the mechanic who had made the error. The young man was paralyzed with fear. He was sobbing, tears streaming down his face. He had just destroyed a priceless plane and almost killed 3 people. He expected Hoover, a powerful, famous pilot, to scream, to fire him, to destroy him with words. That is what most of us would do, isn't it? When someone hurts us or costs us money, our ego demands revenge. We want to be right. We want them to suffer for their stupidity. But Hoover didn't do that. He walked up to the sobbing boy, put his arm around his shoulder, and said softly, "To show you I'm sure that you'll never do this again, I want you to service my F-51 tomorrow." That moment gives me chills every time I think about it. That is the height of human character. Any fool can criticize, condemn, and complain, and most fools do. But it takes character and self-control to be understanding and forgiving. Hoover understood a secret law of the universe. People are not creatures of logic. We are creatures of emotion, bristling with prejudices and motivated by pride and vanity. When you deal with people, you are not dealing with computers where you fix a line of code. You are dealing with fragile hearts. So the first step to winning people over is to bear your judgment. Don't criticize. But if we stop criticizing, what should we do instead? What is the fuel that actually makes humans run? This brings us to the second layer of our foundation. There is a hunger in every human being that is just as deep as the hunger for food and just as urgent as the need for sleep. Yet, it is the one hunger that is almost never satisfied. It is the desire to be great, the desire to feel important. Sigmund Freud called it the desire to be great. John Dewey said the deepest urge in human nature is the desire to be important. Think about the last time someone genuinely, honestly praised you. Not a fake compliment to get something from you, but a moment where someone looked you in the eye and appreciated who you are. How did it feel? It probably felt like sunshine breaking through a cloudy day. You probably remember those words even years later. We are often so stingy with our appreciation. We assume people know they're doing a good job. A wife assumes her husband knows she loves his cooking. A boss assumes the paycheck is enough thanks for the employee. But people are starving for appreciation. They are withering away because their souls are not being fed. There is a massive difference between appreciation and flattery. Flattery is cheap. It is telling people what they think about themselves. It comes from the teeth out. Appreciation comes from the heart out. To truly influence people, you must stop thinking about yourself for 5 minutes. Stop worrying about your problems, your needs, your ego. Look at the person in front of you. Find the thing about them that is genuinely admirable. And then say it. Give honest and sincere appreciation. You will see people bloom before your very eyes. You will make friends not by manipulation, but by being a source of light in their lives. Finally, we come to the third piece of this foundation, the secret to actually getting things done. Let's be honest. The world is full of people who are selfish. We are all interested in what we want. You are interested in your problems, your career, your headache. You aren't interested in mine. So why on earth do we try to convince people to do things by talking about what we want? It is absurd. It is like going fishing and baiting the hook with strawberries and cream. You might love strawberries and cream, but the fish doesn't. The fish wants a worm. If you want to catch the fish, you have to dangle a worm. Why don't we use the same common sense with people? The only way on earth to influence other people is to talk about what they want and show them how to get it. Take the story of Andrew Carnegie, the great steel tycoon. He had 2 nephews who were away at college. They were so busy enjoying their youth that they never replied to their mother's letters. Their mother was frantic, worrying herself sick. Carnegie bet $100 that he could get an answer by return mail without even asking for it. He wrote his nephews a chatty letter, mentioning how much fun he was having. And then, casually, in the postscript, he added that he was sending along a $5 bill for each of them, but he didn't enclose the money. The reply came back by return mail thanking Dear Uncle Andrew for his kind letter, and you guessed it, asking where the money was. Carnegie didn't preach. He didn't say, you should write to your mother because it's the right thing to do. That is talking about what the mother wants. Instead, he aroused in them an eager want. He focused on what they wanted. So the next time you want to persuade someone, whether it's getting your child to eat vegetables or getting a client to sign a deal, pause. Do not speak about your needs. Ask yourself, how can I make this person want to do it? This is the foundation. It requires a shift in your soul. It requires you to move from a self-centered view of the world to a human-centered view. It requires patience to not criticize, generosity to appreciate, and wisdom to see through the eyes of others. It is not easy. It is a practice. But if you can master these 3 things, you will hold the key to every heart you encounter. Now, before we end this section, I want to leave you with a small challenge to test your understanding of human nature. I want you to look deep into your own experiences and answer this honestly in the comments below. Which approach do you believe is more powerful in the long run to change a person's behavior? A, pointing out their mistake immediately and logically explaining why they are wrong, so they don't repeat it. B, swallowing your criticism, finding something they did right to praise first, and then making them want to change by showing them how it benefits them. Please comment A or B below and tell me why. I will be reading your answers to see who truly grasped the art of human relations. But here's the strange, uncomfortable truth about everything we have just discussed. You can follow every rule of not criticizing, you can master the art of not complaining, and you can offer sincere appreciation, yet still find yourself eating lunch alone. Why? Because simply not being an enemy does not automatically make you a friend. You can stop digging a hole, but that doesn't mean you have built a mountain. To truly capture a heart, to make people not just tolerate you, but actually light up when you walk into the room. You need something more active. You need magnetism. So how do you generate this magnetism? The answer has been staring us in the face for thousands of years, taught to us by the greatest expert on making friends the world has ever known. He never read a psychology book. He never attended a seminar. He doesn't even speak a word of human language. I am talking about the humble dog. Think about it. When you walk down the street and see a dog, what does it do? It wags its tail. It jumps up. Its entire body vibrates with pure, unadulterated joy just because you exist. It doesn't try to impress you with its resume. It doesn't try to sell you real estate. It just shows you, with every fiber of its being, that you are the most exciting thing in its world. And what do we do in return? We can't help it. We smile, we pet it, we love it back. Dale Carnegie realized a profound truth from watching this. You can make more friends in 2 months by becoming genuinely interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you. Most of us go through life doing the exact opposite. We walk into a party or a meeting and we turn on the me show. We try to be clever, we try to be successful, we try to be interesting. We think if we shine bright enough, people will like us. But people are not looking for a spotlight to stare at. They are looking for someone to shine a light on them. If you want to win people over, you must step off the stage and become the audience. When you talk to people, forget about yourself. Ask about their background, their struggles, their victories. Look at them not as a background character in your movie, but as the protagonist of their own epic story. When you are genuinely interested in others, you don't have to try to be fascinating. Your interest is the most fascinating thing about you. But what if you don't have the chance to speak yet? What if you are just making eye contact from across the room? There is a magic wand you can wave that instantly breaks down walls. It is so simple that we often forget its power, a smile. But I'm not talking about a mechanical, plastic smile that you paste on your face like a mask. People can spot a fake smile a mile away and they resent it. I'm talking about a real, heartwarming smile that comes from within. A smile that says, I like you. You make me happy. I am glad to see you. There was a stockbroker in New York who was known as a grouch. He rarely smiled at his wife, he never smiled at the doorman, and he certainly didn't smile at his employees. He was rich, but he was socially bankrupt. One day he decided to try an experiment. He forced himself to smile at everyone he met. He smiled at the subway clerk. He smiled at the elevator operator. He smiled at the traders on the floor. The result was a miracle. The tension in his life evaporated. People who used to avoid him started approaching him. Complaints at his office dropped. His revenue actually went up. An action as small as curving your lips upward can change the entire weather of your social environment. Now, once you have engaged someone with that warmth, there is one sound you must master. It is a sound that acts like a spell. To every person on this earth, the sweetest and most important sound in any language is their own name. We often say, I'm terrible with names, but that is just a lazy excuse for I didn't care enough to focus. A person's name is their identity. It sets them apart from the billions of other souls on this planet. When you forget a name, you are subtly saying, you are forgettable. But when you remember a name, especially of someone who thinks they are little or unimportant, like a waiter or a junior intern, you pay them a subtle and effective compliment. You are validating their existence. Jim Farley, a man who rose from nothing to become a political giant, claimed he could call 50,000 people by their first names. That was his secret. He built an empire on the foundation of remembering names. So the next time you meet someone, don't let their name wash over you. Grab it, repeat it, anchor it in your mind. Nice to meet you, Sarah. What do you think, Sarah? Use it like a gift. As the conversation deepens, you will face the temptation to talk about yourself again. Resist it. Instead, become a master of the empty bottle technique. Imagine every person you meet is holding a bottle full of their own opinions, troubles, and stories. If you try to pour your own stories into them while their bottle is still full, it will just spill over and make a mess. They can't listen to you because they are too full of themselves. You must let them pour it out. Be a good listener. Encourage others to talk about themselves. There is a story of a time Carnegie attended a dinner party and met a distinguished botanist. Carnegie didn't know anything about plants, but he sat there for hours, fascinated, listening to the man talk about exotic flowers and garden experiments. Carnegie hardly said a word. At the end of the night, the botanist told the host that Carnegie was the most interesting conversationalist he had ever met. Think about the irony. Carnegie had said almost nothing. He had merely listened. But he listened so intently, with such genuine curiosity, that the botanist felt like a genius. That is what people crave. They don't want a debate partner. They want a sounding board. They want to be heard. And when you do speak, what should you talk about? Do you talk about your love for French poetry to a man who loves fixing cars? No. You talk in terms of the other person's interests. Theodore Roosevelt, one of the most charismatic presidents in history, used to stay up late the night before a visitor arrived, reading up on the subject he knew the guest was interested in. If a cowboy was coming, he read about cattle. If a diplomat was coming, he read about foreign policy. He knew that the royal road to a person's heart is to talk about the things they treasure most. Ultimately, all these techniques, the smile, the name, the listening, the interest, converge into one single golden rule. It is the summation of all human desire. Make the other person feel important and do it sincerely. We are all walking around with an invisible sign hanging around our necks that says, "Please make me feel important." The life of many people is a long gray road of being overlooked and undervalued. If you can be the person who stops, looks them in the eye, and validates their worth, not with flattery, but with honest recognition of their value, you will not just win a friend. You will win a devotee. You will have given them the fuel they need to keep going. And in lifting them up, you will find that you have lifted yourself up to a place of influence that no amount of arguing or boasting could ever achieve. But you might be thinking, it is all well and good to be charming, to smile, and to remember names when things are going smoothly. But what happens when the storm hits? What happens when we fundamentally disagree? What happens when I know I'm right and the other person is dead wrong? This is the moment where most relationships crack. We spend weeks building a bridge of friendship, only to blow it up in 10 seconds with a stick of dynamite called "I told you so." We feel an almost biological urge to correct people, to fix their facts, to prove our intellectual superiority. But here is the cold, hard truth that Dale Carnegie discovered, a truth that might save your career and your marriage. You can never win an argument. It sounds impossible, doesn't it? But think about it. If you lose the argument, you lose. But if you win the argument, if you tear the other person's logic to shreds, if you prove they are ignorant and foolish, what have you actually achieved? You have won a victory of logic, but you have suffered a defeat of the heart. You have made the other person feel inferior. You have hurt their pride. A man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. You cannot force someone to agree with you any more than you can force a rose to bloom by pulling on its petals. So, the first step in influencing others is to avoid the argument as you would avoid a rattlesnake. But if we can't argue, how do we handle disagreement? We start by never ever saying the 3 most dangerous words in human communication. You are wrong. Telling someone they are wrong is a direct blow to their intelligence, their judgment, and their self-respect. It doesn't make them want to agree with you. It makes them want to strike back. Instead, try a little magic phrase. Say, "I may be wrong. I frequently am. Let's examine the facts." There is no person on earth who will object to you saying, "I may be wrong." It stops the fight before it begins. It turns you from opponents into investigators looking for the truth together. But what if you are the one who is actually in the wrong? This is where true strength is revealed. Imagine the author walking his dog Rex in a park. Rex was a friendly little dog, so Carnegie didn't put a muzzle or a leash on him, even though it was against the law. One day, they ran into a police officer who was eager to show his authority. The officer scolded Carnegie and warned him never to let it happen again. But a few days later, Carnegie let Rex run free again, and sure enough, the same officer caught them. Carnegie didn't wait for the officer to speak. He didn't make excuses. He didn't say, "But the dog is small." Instead, he admitted his mistake quickly, openly, and with enthusiasm. He said, "Officer, you caught me red-handed. I have no excuses. You warned me, and I disobeyed." What happened next was pure human psychology. The police officer, like all of us, wanted to feel important. When Carnegie began to condemn himself, the only way for the officer to nourish his self-esteem was to show mercy. The officer actually began to defend Carnegie, saying, "Well, it is a small dog. He's not hurting anyone." By admitting his fault, Carnegie turned a judge into a defender. When you are wrong, admit it quickly. It clears the air and disarms your opponent completely. Now that the air is cleared, how do you move someone to your side? You don't do it by hammering them with your demands. You do it with a drop of honey. If a man's heart is rankling with discord and ill feeling towards you, you can't win him to your way of thinking with all the logic in Christendom. You must begin in a friendly way. You must make him feel that you are his friend, not his conqueror. And once you have established that friendliness, you must use the method of Socrates. Do not begin by discussing the things on which you differ. Begin by emphasizing the things on which you agree. Get the other person saying yes, yes at the outset. Keep them from saying no. When a person says no, their entire nervous system, their glandular system, pulls back into a condition of rejection. It is a physical withdrawal. But when they say yes, their organism moves forward in an accepting, open attitude. It is like a billiard ball rolling down a hill. Once you get the momentum going in the right direction, it is effortless to keep it moving. If you want to sell an idea, don't start with the price or the difficult parts. Start with the shared goals. Get the yes, momentum building until the final agreement is just the natural next step. But even with all this, there is one barrier left. We all love our own ideas. We cherish them, we nurture them, and we hate the ideas that are forced upon us. So why do we try to ram our opinions down people's throats? Isn't it wiser to make suggestions and let the other person think out the conclusion for themselves? Lao Tzu, the Chinese sage, said that the reason rivers and seas receive the homage of 100 mountain streams is that they keep below them. If you want to influence people, you must let them feel the idea is theirs. Plant the seed, water it gently, and let them harvest the fruit. When they believe the plan is their own baby, they will work day and night to make it succeed. Finally, if you want to truly move people, you must appeal to what makes them human. You must tap into their imagination and their heroism. First, dramatize your ideas. We live in an age of cinema and screens. The truth alone is not enough. The truth must be made vivid, interesting, and dramatic. Don't just say your product saves money. Throw a handful of coins on the floor and let them hear the sound of wasted cash. Don't just say you have a lot of storage. Say you have 1,000 songs in your pocket. And for the spirited souls, the ones who have everything but still lack drive, there is one final tool, the challenge. Charles Schwab, the steel executive, had a mill manager whose workers weren't producing enough. He didn't scold them. He didn't fire them. He simply asked the day shift how many heats of steel they had made. They said 6. Without a word, Schwab took a piece of chalk and wrote a big number 6 on the floor. When the night shift came in, they saw the 6 and asked what it meant. The next morning, Schwab walked in and saw that the 6 had been rubbed out and replaced with a big 7. The night shift wanted to show they were better than the day shift. Soon, that mill was outproducing every other mill. The way to get things done is to stimulate competition, not in a sordid money-grabbing way, but in the desire to excel, the desire to master, the desire to win. That is what every successful person loves, the game, the chance for self-expression, the chance to prove one's worth. You have learned how to handle the fragile ego of a human being, how to make them like you, and even how to bring them around to your way of thinking without an argument. But life is not always a smooth negotiation. Sometimes, you are the boss, the parent, or the leader, and things are going wrong. People are making mistakes. Standards are slipping. The challenge has been thrown down, as we just discussed, but they are failing to meet it. How do you tell someone they are doing a bad job without destroying their spirit? How do you change people without making them hate you? This brings us to the most delicate art of all, the art of leadership. Think of yourself for a moment, not as a manager or a critic, but as a dentist. When a dentist has to perform painful work like drilling a tooth, they don't just walk in and start drilling. That would be torture. They first administer Novocaine. They numb the pain so the work can be done. In human relations, praise is your Novocaine. It is always easier to listen to unpleasant things after we have heard some praise about our good points. A barber lathers a man before he shaves him. So if you must correct someone, begin with praise and honest appreciation. But be careful. There is a trap here that almost everyone falls into. A trap that turns your praise into poison. It is the word but. You did a great job on that report, John, but you missed the deadline. The moment John hears the word but, he knows the praise was a lie. It was just a wrapper for the criticism. The but erases everything that came before it. If you want to be a leader of hearts, you must perform a simple linguistic surgery. Replace but with and. You did a great job on that report, John, and if you can get the next one in by Tuesday, it will be even more effective. Do you feel the difference? The praise stands. The correction is a challenge for the future, not a condemnation of the past. You have corrected him without he even realizing he was being corrected. However, sometimes the mistake is too big for just a subtle nudge. Sometimes you have to address a failure directly. In these moments, before you point a finger at them, point it at yourself first. It is incredibly difficult to be angry with someone who starts by saying, "I have made the same mistake myself. In fact, I have done worse." Dale Carnegie tells the story of how he tried to correct his niece Josephine, who was 19 years old and making mistakes in her work. He started to scold her, but then he stopped. He looked in the mirror and said, "Dale, you are twice as old as she is. You have 10,000 times her business experience. How can you expect her to have your viewpoint? And by the way, what were you doing at 19? He remembered that at 19, he was far more foolish than she was. So he started his feedback by saying, "You made a mistake, Josephine, but the Lord knows it's no worse than many I have made." Admitting your own mistakes, even when you haven't made that specific one, humanizes you. It lowers the pedestal and brings you down to their level, making them receptive to your guidance rather than resentful of your authority. Now let's talk about power. There is a misconception that a leader is someone who barks orders. Do this, don't do that, have this on my desk by 5. This is the method of a dictator, not a leader. A true leader asks questions instead of giving orders. Owen D. Young, a famous industrialist, never gave a direct order. He would say, "You might consider this," or "Do you think this would work?" When he saw a letter he didn't like, he wouldn't say, "Rewrite this." He would ask, "Maybe if we phrased it this way, it would be better." Asking questions saves a person's pride. It gives them a feeling of importance. It encourages cooperation instead of rebellion. When you ask, "What do you think is the best way to handle this?" you are telling them, "I respect your brain. I trust your judgment." And people will walk through fire for someone who treats them with that kind of respect. But what if you have to let someone go? What if you have to demote them or reject their work? This is where most leaders fail because they trample on the feelings of others. They criticize in front of others. They shout. They destroy. But a great leader knows one golden rule. Let the other person save face. Even if you are right and the other person is definitely wrong, you only destroy their ego by causing them to lose face. What matters is not what you think of them, but what they think of themselves. Hurting a man in his dignity is a crime. If you must correct, do it privately. Do it gently. Leave them with their self-respect intact. And as they begin to improve, even if it is just a tiny step, praise the slightest improvement and praise every improvement. Be hearty in your approbation and lavish in your praise. Think about how we train animals. When a dog does a trick, we give it a treat and pat its head. We don't wait for it to be a circus performer before we clap. Why do we wait for our children or employees to be perfect before we offer a kind word? Praise is the sunlight in which the human soul grows. Without it, we wither. When you praise a small step, you inspire the person to take the next step, and the next, until the fault they had seems easy to correct. Finally, if you want to change a person, give them a fine reputation to live up to. If you have a worker who has become lazy, don't tell him he is lazy. Tell him that in the past, he has been one of the most reliable, hardworking people you have ever seen, and you know that is who he truly is. When you hand someone a reputation of integrity or skill or reliability, They will make a superhuman effort not to prove you wrong. They will want to live up to the image you have painted of them. Leadership, in the end, is not about control. It is about vision. It is about seeing the best in people, even when they cannot see it in themselves, and using these gentle tools, praise, humility, questions, and respect, to help them become that better version. When you make people happy about doing the things you suggest, you aren't just getting a task done. You are building a legacy of loyalty and growth that will outlast any order you could ever give. You might be holding this new knowledge like a set of master keys, ready to unlock every door, diffuse every argument, and lead every team to victory. It feels empowering, doesn't it? But before you rush out into the world to test these techniques, I need you to pause, because there's a dangerous trap waiting for you. If you look at these principles, smiling, remembering names, avoiding arguments, praising improvements, and you see them merely as tricks or hacks to manipulate people into doing what you want, you will fail. You might succeed for a day or a week, but eventually people will see through you. They will sense the artificiality of your smile and the calculation behind your praise. This brings us to the final and perhaps the most profound realization of Dale Carnegie's work. How to Win Friends and Influence People is not a book about strategy. It is a book about a new way of life. The core mindset, the invisible engine that makes all these techniques work, is a fundamental shift in your center of gravity. For most of us, our center of gravity is our own ego. We walk into a room thinking, how do I look? What do people think of me? How can I get what I want? We are the protagonists of our own movies, and everyone else is just an extra. Carnegie invites us to perform a Copernican revolution of the soul. He asks us to realize that we are not the center of the universe. To truly influence others, you must shift your focus entirely from me to them. This is not just about being nice. It is about being effective. When you stop asking, how can I defeat this person in an argument, and start asking, how can I help this person feel understood, the dynamic changes instantly. When you stop worrying about getting credit for an idea and start worrying about how to make the other person feel ownership of that idea, resistance melts away. This shift requires a tremendous amount of humility. It requires you to silence that loud, demanding voice of your own pride that screams, I am right, notice me, respect me, and replace it with a quiet curiosity that asks, who are you? What is your story? What makes you feel important? This leads us to the second pillar of this mindset, the battle between effectiveness and ego. In every interaction, you have a choice. You can either be right or you can be happy. You can either satisfy your vanity by correcting someone's grammar or criticizing their mistake, or you can build a relationship that lasts a lifetime. You cannot usually do both. The principles we have discussed, like admitting your own mistakes or letting the other person save face, are painful to the ego. It hurts to say, I was wrong. It hurts to let someone else take the credit. But this is the price of admission for leadership. The small person rages and defends their territory. The great person steps back, swallows their pride, and focuses on the bigger picture. Think of social intelligence not as a talent you are born with, but as a muscle. Just like you cannot go to the gym once, lift a heavy weight, and declare yourself fit for the rest of your life, you cannot simply read this summary and declare yourself charming. These principles run contrary to our natural human instincts. Our instinct is to blame, to criticize, and to talk about ourselves. To live by Carnegie's code requires constant daily vigilance. It is a discipline. You will fail. You will snap at your spouse. You will forget a name. You will criticize a colleague. That is okay. The goal is not perfection. The goal is awareness. The goal is to catch yourself in the middle of an argument and stop. To catch yourself about to criticize and turn it into a question. To catch yourself feeling ignored and turn it into an opportunity to listen. So here is my challenge to you, the final application of everything we have learned. Do not try to change your whole personality overnight. Do not try to apply all 30 principles tomorrow morning. You will overwhelm yourself. Instead, pick just one. Maybe for the next 24 hours, you choose the principle. Give honest and sincere appreciation. Make it a game. Look at the bus driver, the barista, your child, your boss. Find one thing, just one specific thing that they do well, and tell them, Watch their eyes. Watch how their posture changes. Watch how the energy in the room shifts. Or maybe you choose, become genuinely interested in other people. In your next conversation, challenge yourself to not say I or me for 5 minutes. Just ask questions. Listen as if your life depended on understanding their world. When you do this, you will realize that Dale Carnegie didn't just give us a book on business or social skills. He gave us a blueprint for peace. He showed us that the friction, the loneliness, and the conflict that plague our lives are not necessary. They are the result of neglecting the human heart. By treating people with dignity, by feeding their hunger for importance, and by listening with empathy, you are not just winning friends. You are adding to the sum total of happiness in the world. You are making the people around you feel seen, heard, and valued. And in a world that is often cold and indifferent, that makes you a rare and precious kind of person. Thank you so much for walking this path with me today. It has been a long journey through these 5 parts, but I believe it is one of the most important investments you can make in yourself. If this video added value to your life, if it gave you a new perspective or a tool you can use, please support the channel. Hit that like button so more people can find this message. Subscribe to Tomorrow Better Version and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the wisdom that changes lives. And please, tell me in the comments, which principle are you going to practice tomorrow? I would love to hear your story. Until next time, remember, the only way to have a friend is to be one. Goodbye, and keep growing.